Today I'm going to be making a video that I've wanted to make for quite some time, especially going into the new year. You know, we all have New Year's resolutions and new things that we want to do and we want to try. I'm not really a huge fan of New Year's resolutions. I'm a big believer of you can kind of make changes whenever you feel like you need to make changes and whenever you feel like you want to make a change in your life. But today I wanted to focus on learning the Italian language because this has been an ongoing goal of mine for the longest time. Ever since I have been at uni, and I don't know if all of you guys know, if you're new here, you might not know, but when I was at university, I was studying a double degree. So I was doing communications and international studies. So for international studies, we were learning like a language of our choice. So I chose Italian. And so at uni, I started to learn the Italian language and I started learning about the Italian culture, etc, etc. And that sort of carried on into my year abroad, so my year exchange, where I spent 2019 in Italy and I studied at an Italian university here in Milan. It's kind of been a goal of mine, like an ongoing goal of mine for quite some time. If you are interested in learning the Italian language, or I guess any language, it doesn't have to be Italian, but if you're interested in learning a language, you'll know that it does take, you know, a lot of dedication and a lot of time. So I'm gonna bring you guys 4 things that I feel like have helped me to stay consistent and effective in my language learning. So I hope they can help you as well. And let's just get straight into them. So number 1 is to find your motivator. And this might sound quite generic, but it's really, really important. If you don't have a motivation, if you don't have a why, and you often hear that being thrown around is like your why, especially if you're, you know, starting a business or you're heading out on a new venture, you're wanting to find a new job, you want to choose the university course. You always need to have a why, like what is your reason, what is going to keep you going? Or even if you're like trying a new health and fitness goal, for example, like you always need to have something that's going to keep you going when you're not necessarily like feeling the most motivated that day. You can't always rely on external sources of inspiration to keep you going on your language learning journey. So one thing for me has been this one. This has been probably the biggest one that's kind of kept me going and kept me, I guess, passionate and consistent, is having my motivator. So originally my motivator was obviously, you know, I was at university and I knew that from the beginning of my university course, I was going to spend a year abroad in Italy and I was going to study in an Italian university and take classes in Italian. And I wanted to make sure that I was giving myself the best possible chance of, you know, integrating myself into the Italian lifestyle, the Italian culture, and open myself up to meeting as many people as I could and interacting with as many people as I could. I guess my why, like my motivator, has changed a little bit over time since I met my boyfriend who's Italian. I met him in 2019, and so my motivator became then to be able to interact with his family and his friends, even interact with him, even though he's fluent in English. It's always nice to be able to speak their native language as well, because, you know, you feel everything deeper in your native language. And, you know, even though he's fluent in English, sometimes we do have like miscommunication, and that can be really common in intercultural relationships as well. So over time, my motivator has changed, but I have always made sure that I do have a motivator because, you know, his family doesn't speak English. So I have to make sure that I'm on my A game, and I have to make sure that I'm constantly practicing and working on myself and working on my language, because I know that like I don't really have another choice. And I love being able to speak more Italian, like feeling myself improve, you know, as I'm having these interactions and as I'm practicing the language. I find that to be even more motivating. Like when you're, you know, listening to conversations around you and you're like, wow, I really understand more than I did this time last year or this time six months ago. So yeah, that was really long-winded, that first one, but that's the most important one, is find your motivator. Number 2, and it might be like a little bit unconventional, I don't really know, but number 2 for me is to unlearn everything you've ever learned. This one comes from when I was at school. And you know the way you would learn like during your HSC exams, for example, or like in general the school system in Australia anyway, I'm not sure what it's like in other parts of the world. Like I know in Europe it's it's a lot different than in Australia. In Australia, you know, it was a lot of textbook learning, and if you didn't learn that way, you would fall behind, and it's like as simple as that, really. If you had like a different way that you learn, like if you were more creative, you know, they teach everyone in the same way. So if you're not a textbook learner, then I don't know, like you're probably not gonna be as, like you're probably not gonna perform as well. Even though it's not a measure of intelligence, it is just a matter of like, you might just have a different way of learning. And a lot of people fall into that boat, and looking back, I don't think I was thriving at school. Like to a certain extent, I really enjoy like having a routine and having structure. But looking back, I think, especially when I was learning Italian at university, the way that we were learning it was predominantly, you know, through textbooks. We did a bit of speaking here and there in our exams and things like that, like our exam prep and that kind of thing. But I don't think that I maximized my ability to learn a language, because even though I was at university and I was learning Italian for like 2 years or 2 university years, which is probably equivalent to like 1 year in total, I didn't feel confident. Like even after 2 years, when I first came to Italy, I did not feel confident at all in the Italian language. It wasn't until I got here and I started, you know, really pushing myself and speaking to people that were from here, and really, I guess, immersing myself that way, that I learnt a lot of my conversation skills, how to interact with people in different situations, different vocabulary for different situations and things like that. For me, when I think back to my HSC exams, for example, I literally couldn't tell you something that I remember. Like, I mean, sure, there's a few things here and there, but for the most part, textbook learning for me was just like a memory game. So I would learn something for an exam, for example, saying like, I don't know, legal studies or PE. And you might remember things here and there, but in general, I don't really remember that much from the content that I studied in year 12, like before my final exams. And I think that just goes to show that that way of learning did not work for me. I mean, it worked in my short-term memory, sure, like I could do well in exams and things like that, but in the long term, I don't think it's the most efficient way to learn. So that's my second tip, is don't fall into the mentality that you have to learn from a textbook, because there's so many different ways that you can learn, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So the next one, and I love this because it puts like a whole new meaning onto studying and onto, studying a language. And it's to watch movies in Italian, like in Italian audio with Italian subtitles. And this is a big emphasis on not with English subtitles, with Italian subtitles in Italian. So literally just over the Christmas period, I was staying with my boyfriend's family. And as I was mentioning before, they don't speak any English at all. So whenever we would sit down to like watch a series or watch a movie, it would always be in Italian. We were watching this series, like we started this series called The Queen's Gambit. A lot of you have probably heard of it. It's so good. I absolutely loved it. But anyway, we sat down to watch it, and for some reason the English subtitles weren't working. And so they were like, well, we'll just put the Italian subtitles on. I know you probably like won't understand everything, but at least, you know, you can try and connect the vocals to, the audio to the words on the screen, and I guess like try and learn the best you can that way. I didn't even realize this, but when I was watching it with the Italian subtitles and Italian audio, I really doubted myself at the start, and I didn't think that I'd be able to learn that way, or I didn't think I would understand as much as I did. But I did. I really understood quite a lot. And I think because I am such a visual learner, and if you are the same, for me, like if I were just to sit down and watch a movie in Italian without subtitles, it wouldn't be like an effective way of learning for me. Like it wouldn't be an effective way of studying, because I'm such a visual person. So like having the words on the screen like matching up with the vocals, I have to see like what the word looks like and connecting that to the kind of pronunciation of the word. And I find that to be really helpful in like in determining, you know, like how people say certain things, and you know, when people are talking and they might say something differently, but it's the same word. So like having that, like having, I guess, a context, like a visual context to connect to the words that they're speaking, I found to be really, really helpful. And I really surprised myself with how much I learned and how much that I really understood. So I think, you know, if you're gonna sit down to watch a series in another language, like with the other language subtitles, it's not like you're sitting down and relaxing to watch a series. Like, you have to maintain that concentration and that focus all the time. But at the same time, it's another way of studying, I guess, that really helped me, and it could help you guys too. So I would really recommend that. Or even like watching series that you've already seen in English, for example, and watching them in Italian. So in that way you can, I guess, watch something that you've already seen before, and in a genre that you really like, or that you're passionate about, like interested in, and yeah, like apply it to another language and another culture. So yeah, that could be interesting, like an interesting study method for some of you guys. So I watched The Queen's Gambit. What else did I watch when I was in the south of Italy? Oh, I watched the movie, the Cinderella movie. I think it's the new one. It came out, well, it's not new, it came out like a few years ago now, but the newest one. And I have seen that before in English, and I watched it in Italian, like with Italian subtitles. And yeah, I mean, that one was a really good one because it has like quite powerful visuals as well. So it's really easy for, I mean, even if you're just a beginner, watching a movie like Cinderella, where everything is like very visual, can be really useful in helping you understand like what's going on and things like that. I'm not sure if I've talked about this series before, but it's called Baby, and it's based in Rome. It's originally shot and recorded in Italian as well. So the mouth movements also link in with the words that they're speaking. So the mouth movements and like their conversational way of like moving and the body language and things like that, it all kind of matches up. Quite an interesting series, especially for young people, because it's kind of, it follows these girls that kind of live a double life, and they attend this prestigious kind of private school, but then they also get involved in like this sugar baby situation, and the actors are really, really interesting characters. And what I find to be really useful about watching a series that's originally shot in Italian and, you know, filmed in Italian, is that you get a feel for a lot of the different conversational elements and conversational words and things like that that you would not necessarily get in a more formal context, like learning from a textbook, for example. So I find that watching a series like Baby, for example, could be really, really useful in, I guess, getting a feel for how people your age speak, for example. So that's a really good one as well that I would recommend to you guys. And my number 4, my last tip for you guys, is to establish an effective study routine that works for you. So something that is going to keep you consistent with studying and things like that. So when I say study routine, it doesn't have to be, you know, sitting down at a desk with a pen and paper and a textbook and like doing that for an hour each day. Like, try to think as untraditional as you can. Try and get as creative as you can, and choose something that fits into your lifestyle. Like, if you're someone who really likes going for walks, you could listen to like a podcast or something like an Italian podcast. I had one on my phone. Wait, let me see if I can find it. And they tell like various short stories and things in Italian. It's called Coffee Break Italian. I'll put it on the screen. And sometimes, you know, if I'm in the mood to, like, if I don't necessarily want to actively do something like write something or watch something, and I'm just like, you know, when I was in Australia, like if I was on the train to work or something, or if I was out for a walk, I'll just put one of these episodes on. It's like, qual è la tua città italiana preferita? And it's just like 18 minutes. That one's 18 minutes. Usually like 15 to 20 minute long episodes. So if you're like commuting or something, they've got another one that's qual è la cosa più strana che hai mai mangiato? What is the strangest thing you've ever eaten? They have conversations and they just talk about various different things that I guess you would come across in everyday life. And I find that to be like, I guess, something that I find easy to fit into my daily life, and it's not too much. Like it feels like it's quite manageable. And especially when you're creating a study routine, I think it's really, really important to make it maintainable and make it like something that you're going to stick to and something that actually does fit into your lifestyle, because it's not going to be the same for everyone. Like everyone has a different lifestyle, different routines, schedules, things like that. So finding something that you can easily slot into, you know, a spare moment on your lunch break or whatever, like late at night or really early in the morning. I know a lot of people, like I was watching this video the other day, and I think it's like one other girl who was trying to learn Italian, and she said that reading short stories for her really works. So she'll set aside like 20 minutes to half an hour in the morning, and that really works for her. And she'll just like read a children's story, which is, you know, that's how we learnt our first language, like English, or whatever your first language is. So trying to apply that, I guess, to your next language could really work for you. That's all I have for today's video, guys. I hope you found it useful and you'll take something from it to learn, and you'll take something from it into your 2021 language learning goals. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and make sure to subscribe for new videos every single week. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next one. Bye guys.